Innovate. Enable.
Workplace environment fast changing, businesses today seek innovative solutions to increase productivity, engage workers and encourage growth. As more and more organizations adopt an integrated culture to meet the new trend, the role of leadership is remarkably evolving into a broad-based team building approach that encourages creative thinking at the workplace. Further inform, educate and lead, Isha Leadership Academy organized DNA of Success, a 4-day business leadership program that brought together over 200 business leaders and entrepreneurs to explore the science of scaling up one's business as well as one's own self.
Isha Insight is an effort to bring a different kind of capability into the business leaders. India is still a new business nation. This generation is into entrepreneurship in a big way. To make a business happen, there are various aspects. One can see almost everywhere in the world, largely most great businesses on the planet were started by an individual with a certain insight. After generations, people may be still thriving on his insight and just managing the business, but there may not be any new insight many times. So to bring that ability to have insight, to bring a dimension within you, an experiential dimension within you, which enhances the very way you perceive life, experience life, understand life and find expression to life. This is the main purpose of Isha Insight. It has been run in a unique manner in the sense we always take a doyen of Indian business and another new success, an effervescent new success of the day. And they will share their life's journey with 200 business leaders of the nation who can make a difference for the country's business. So in sharing this life's experience, we draw out the lessons that you can have from their successes, from their failures, and the learning curve that they had in their life towards this successful journey. So the idea is to be in contact with this success and to understand how success happened. It has worked out beautifully well and the experience of Insight has been fantastic. We have had great business leaders and there's a whole range of resource leaders who are top-class successful people. We have brought this into them. This is something that I'm doing in all endeavors. In some way, when you're a leader, you have to see better than others. If you cannot see better than others, you will become a point of ridicule. Spiritual process is a must for a business person. Spirituality does not mean looking up or looking down. Spirituality means turning inward.
Mr. Piramal, you with a textile background chose to go and buy Nicholas, a pharma company, an area in which you kind of, from at least from a family business perspective, had absolutely no kind of experience in. Can you tell us a little bit about it? What kind of drove the decision at the time? What made you do it?
I felt that the organized textile industry in Mumbai particularly did not have a future, and therefore one had to look out for what is different and any other industry. So whilst we were just on the lookout, by chance, I think I came across somebody actually at a lunch of a friend. One of the solicitors told me that here is a company called Nicholas, why don't you take some interest? I just felt that the future in India was for pharmaceuticals. How can you have such a large country where only 30% of people are covered with modern medicine, which is what it was in the 80s. And therefore we decided to invest in this business. So
you made 7 acquisitions between 88 and 2010. Most M&A fails, right? 80% of M&A fails. You proved this totally wrong. Again, how did you go about that process? How could you kind of integrate 7 companies over that time period in an area that's clearly considered quite tough to do?
These companies which we acquired had very strong brands, which were built over 50 years, 40 years, and the value of brands you understand, and especially in a country like India, the brand goes on for decades. But why M&As don't succeed very often, I think, first of all, the most important, I think, is there's a lot of ego that's involved when you try and acquire something. Because I want to be known as my name in the papers that I've acquired this. And when you do that, rational thinking doesn't come in. Does it really make sense? Does it make economic sense? So that's one thing. Second thing, my own feeling in M&A is that sometimes we do too many complex calculations. Thirdly, I have a view on advisors. Very often you have the intermediaries, investment banks or whoever, they all have a vested interest to see that an M&A gets done. And therefore one has to be very conscious that not be taken in by that. Every acquisition that you do brings in something good, some good people, some good products, some good processes. Otherwise you would not have done it. And when you realize that, I think that is, according to me, how integrations work. And
would you consider yourself a spiritual person? Does spirituality, do you feel, does it play a role in your business?
To me, it's just this basic foundation that you cannot be attached to anything. You have to be attached to the changeless and not to something which changes. That to me was important.
There is, whatever the area of life, whether it's business, industry, art, sport, spiritual process, no human being has ever done anything significant in any area of life without being devoted to it. Without devotion, you can do mediocre things. Without devotion, you will never do anything significant in your life, whatever the area of activity. Devotion is not about God. Devotion is about the way we are. Devotion is a tool through which we, in some way, you can at least dissolve a part of yourself.
So I think that when you speak about…
Coming up, Sadhguru in conversation with Textile Minister Smriti
we
Irani.
need to leverage.
Namaskaram to everyone, and it's our privilege that Madam Minister, who is normally known as just Smriti, who is many things in one, and today she's the Minister for what India has been, what has been synonymous with India for thousands of years, which is textiles. We mainly want to explore this being a kind of a leadership summit. India as a society is changing more rapidly than any other society on the planet right now. So I'm stressing on the word today, because 5 years ago, what it meant to be a woman and to be a leader in this country and what it means today, in my perception, seems to be completely different. So in your experience of being a woman, which is not by choice, but being a leader and being in politics is by choice, how do these two things fall together? What are the advantages, what are the disadvantages that you face?
I think if I had a choice in terms of my gender, I would choose to be a woman again. And the reason why I say this is because leadership is an inherent skill for women. So when you look at a woman and you say, how are you leading your life? For me, every woman is a leader. We have seen women as an imagery of sacrifice, as an imagery of somebody who conforms, a good woman as somebody who balances everything, does not allow friction to happen. I believe that leadership inherently develops that feminine sense of identifying the strengths and weaknesses of those in your team, and then either strengthening them on their journey, or if somebody does not work as a team, be gentle enough to tell them how we as a team benefit, we as a people benefit if we all work together. That is what should be highlighted about women in politics today. That yes, there are issues on which we all come together, but then as individuals there are some issues that drive us away from the crowd and still help us maintain our individuality. And I think that I can say that for not only women but also men.
The fibers of Indian fabric was also the fibers of Indian economy at one time. How are you looking at really leading this in a dynamic way? How are you thinking of changing the dynamics of this sector where still a large segment of our weaving is handloom, and I feel that is the real strength for future.
I think that from a world perspective, when you look at handcrafted goods, as you've rightfully said, India has a legacy that goes behind that cloth. And every weave, every thread has a story that needs to be told. For too long we have told the poverty side of the story. What you speak of is a story of pride. It's a story of human ingenuity. It's a story of a heritage which is extremely rich. And when you speak of the hand-woven cloth or the handcrafted product from India from that perspective, it gets a better market. But the true benefit to the weaver or the artisan comes when they are directly connected to the market. With the advance of technology, as I have said, there are many issues which we look at in terms of bridging that gap between the market and the artisans. So I think that when we speak about handcrafted goods, there's a huge potential there where we need to leverage. The idea behind it is that if you want that premium price, we through platforms ensure that the weaver or the artisan gets that benefit. And once those stories start getting told, the younger generation and the artisan family feels that it's economically viable for them to take that legacy forward. The world market is big enough for every Indian product to compete there and to, get lots and lots of rupees in for our Indian enterprises.
If you can give us an impassioned speech about something that really matters to you and for the nation.
Let me just begin from your own vision of Isha Sanskriti. And I know that you speak of technology of inner being. I know that you are helping a lot of, especially youngsters, experience their own economic and other potentials and then reach a zenith. So when I look back at my own life, there are 2-3 things that I thought I want my children to do for themselves if they want to pursue anything in life. And if you pursue certain things as individual, then there will be a social turning or churning as you have envisaged. We begin with Sanskriti, Guruji, but in my opinion, just as a housewife, I think that Samvad is extremely important. Samvad not only with the world, but the first conversation with yourself. Second is Siddhant. It's very easy to preach about principles. It's very easy to talk about it, to discuss it. It's very difficult to live up to it. Third thing that I've done in life is Samanvay. Is have a chat in your team as to what your goal is, be that team at work or at home. The day ends with Samiksha. How much did I learn? Or for that matter, if I do a project, what were the good learnings and the bad learnings? It's very easy to be passionate about a thing. It's very difficult to be centered and calm.
Coming up on the other side of the break, Team Indus's journey to the moon.
All that put together. Any journey begins with the inspiration. Any journey begins with a spark somewhere. So my journey is a classic journey, right? So you start your own company, you do a IT services company, products and services company, and you run it to the best that you can. You try and expand. When that doesn't work, you try and diversify. When that doesn't work, you try and change fields. So that was my life until about 6 years ago. So this is about aspiration. November 2010. International competition, sponsored by Google, organized by X Prize, having a 2-line problem statement. Statement 1, land on the moon by December 2017, move 500 meters, send back evidence that you've done so. It did not specify anything else. And the second line was, do it while you're 90% privately funded. So if you have to disrupt an ecosystem, you have to bring in rules that get people to think of technology, think of solutions in a different manner. So it was a second line item that was the real challenge, which is, can a privately funded team put together a spacecraft that would land on the moon, move 500 meters, and send back evidence that it has done so. So flight of imagination, flight of fancy, Star Trek, Chandrayaan, Elon Musk, all that put together. 31st December 2010 is when I, along with a bunch of friends, put together a team, and we called ourselves Team Indus. And we registered ourselves for this competition. We were the last team to come into this competition. We were the only team from India. And when we started, we had no background. As I said, software services, product services, and trying to diversify from there, but nowhere close to aerospace, no idea of how do you build a spacecraft, how do you send something to space, forget about going to the moon, forget about landing on the moon. So this has been an interesting journey. We today are amongst the top 2 or 3 teams. We have, there is a distinct possibility we will go on to probably be the first private team ahead of, I would say there are 16 teams in the competition. About 8 of them are Americans, 3 or 4 of them Europeans. There is a Japanese team. We believe we're going to be ahead of them when it comes to landing something on the moon, and that too privately funded.
Wow.
Thank you. No bunch of 4 people can start from a scratch and land anything on the moon, no matter how bright they are, in 7 years, and that to self-funded or privately funded. That just simply is not possible. I think one of the reasons why we've survived and continue to build is that there's always been a much bigger purpose behind this. If there is a bigger purpose, and if there is a deeper meaning to what people do, they are then motivated. They are then charged to go find the solution for it. A team of bright young 1 to 5 years out of college engineers have worked over the last 4 or 5 years and put together a spacecraft which is being manufactured right now. A small group of people can today accomplish what was previously thought possible only by governments. When we started off, there was no real hope that this is going to go the distance, which on its own gave us, reduced the expectations of people. And there we are over 100 people. We are 85% of them are engineers, again, all of them young. We have a dozen retired ISRO scientists who work with us. They are the architects of what we're building. This is our rover. It is called Isha. It has India's flag on it. It has a name on it. It weighs about 10 kgs, and all this engineering expenditure, people, is happening just because of this. This is the rover which will fly on board our spacecraft and go all the way to the moon. And once the spacecraft lands there, it will be dismounted, and then this is which will traverse 500 meters, is capable of HD imaging, is capable of surround 360-degree panoramic photographs, and it does a whole bunch of engineering tasks to go along with it. Thank you so much.